The conference room went dead silent as the old Japanese man suddenly spoke in perfect American English. 20 executives who'd spent weeks trying to cheat him turned white. But the real shock came when he pulled off his disguise, revealing the face of Ethan Vale, the billionaire CEO who'd vanished from public life years ago. He'd been testing them all along. The ruthless corporate sharks had failed. The arrogant hotel staff had failed. Only one person had passed, a shy waitress drowning in debt, who'd shown him kindness when she thought he was nobody. If you want to see how a waitress became the director of a billion-dollar empire, stick around until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The Grand Meridian Hotel didn't just tower over Michigan Avenue, it dominated it. 43 floors of marble, crystal, and the kind of quiet wealth that whispered rather than shouted. The lobby smelled like imported orchids and old money. Every surface gleamed, every employee moved with practiced precision, every guest expected perfection. Lily Harper had worked there for 2 years and still felt like an imposter. At 30 years old, she moved through the hotel's restaurant with the careful invisibility she'd perfected since childhood. Don't draw attention, don't make mistakes, don't let them see you're drowning. Her server uniform was always pressed, her dark hair always pulled back neatly, her smile always ready, even when her feet ached and her mind spun with worry about the stack of medical bills growing on her kitchen table. "Table 12 needs water," Jessica, the senior server, said without looking up from her phone. "The old Asian guy. Good luck getting him to understand anything." Lily nodded and filled a crystal pitcher, ignoring the eye roll Jessica exchanged with Marcus, another server. 3 days ago, an elderly Japanese businessman had checked into the penthouse suite. The staff had been complaining about him ever since. She approached table 12 carefully. The man sat alone by the window, morning light cutting across his face. He wore an expensive but understated dark suit. His hair was silver, his posture slightly hunched. Thick glasses obscured much of his face. He stared out at the Chicago skyline with an expression Lily couldn't quite read. "Lonely," she thought. "He looks lonely." "Good morning, sir," she said softly, filling his water glass. "Can I bring you anything?" He glanced at her, then away. No response. Lily had served enough international guests to recognize the particular discomfort of the language barrier. She smiled gently and stepped back, giving him space. From across the restaurant, she heard Marcus snort. "Waste of a penthouse suite. Guy barely eats, barely talks. Just sits there taking up space." "Maybe he's shy," Lily said quietly. "Maybe he's just difficult." Jessica checked her makeup in a knife's reflection. "Mr. Chen says he's been impossible about everything. Specific room temperature, specific pillow firmness. Won't communicate except through gestures and grunts. It's like he thinks we're mind readers." Lily said nothing. She'd learned years ago that defending people only made you a target. The morning shift crawled forward. Lily refilled coffee, delivered perfectly plated breakfast, smiled at guests who didn't see her face. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, probably another call from the hospital about her father's treatment schedule. She couldn't check it here. Couldn't afford the distraction. At 11:30, the elderly Japanese businessman was still at table 12. He'd been there for 3 hours. Most guests ate and left within 45 minutes. But this man just sat, occasionally sipping tea, watching the city move below. Other servers had started complaining. Table 12 was prime real estate, and he was killing their turnover rate. Lily, Robert Chen, the restaurant manager, appeared at her elbow. His cologne was too strong, his smile too sharp. "Our guest at 12 has been making requests we can't fulfill." "What does he need?" "That's the problem. We don't know." Robert's smile tightened. "He keeps saying something in Japanese and pointing at the tea. We've brought him every variety in the hotel. Nothing's right. See if you can figure it out before he complains to corporate." Lily approached table 12 again. The man was holding his teacup, examining it with what looked like disappointment. When he saw her, he set it down carefully. "Sir?" Lily kept her voice gentle. "Is something wrong with the tea?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then, in heavily accented English, "Different tea, please." "Of course. What kind would you prefer?" He shook his head slowly, frustrated but not angry. Then he said something in rapid Japanese, the syllables flowing too quickly for Lily to catch individual words. Behind her, she heard Marcus mutter, Here we go again. Lily's mind raced. She'd studied Japanese in college, a lifetime ago, before her mother got sick, before she'd dropped out to work full-time, before the debt became a mountain she couldn't climb. She was rusty, so rusty. But something in the man's expression made her want to try. She took a breath and spoke in careful Japanese. I apologize for the confusion, sir. I don't speak fluently, but I want to help. Could you tell me again, slowly? The entire restaurant went quiet. The elderly businessman stared at her. For 3 full seconds, he didn't move. Then slowly, his expression shifted. Not quite a smile. Something deeper. Something that looked almost like relief. He responded in Japanese, speaking slowly now. Lily caught maybe 60% of it. Something about hojicha, roasted green tea. A specific variety he'd been requesting. Hojicha, Lily repeated. Roasted green tea? The man nodded once. His eyes, behind those thick glasses, suddenly seemed much sharper than before. Lily turned to find every server, every busboy, every member of the kitchen staff within earshot staring at her. Robert's mouth was slightly open. He wants hojicha, Lily said quietly. Roasted green tea. We probably don't have the specific variety he's asking for, but I can check with the supplier. You speak Japanese. Robert's voice carried a note of something that might have been accusation. A little. College courses. I'm very rusty. Why didn't you mention this before? Because you never asked, Lily thought. Because my language skills aren't on my server resume. Because I learned a long time ago that showing you're overqualified for minimum wage work just makes people resentful. I didn't think it mattered, she said instead. Robert's expression cycled through several emotions before landing on calculated friendliness. Well, this is fortunate. From now on, you'll be Mr. Takeda's primary server. Handle all his requests. Make sure he's satisfied. Lily glanced at the elderly man. Mr. Takeda, apparently. He was watching this exchange with an unreadable expression. Of course, she said. The rest of the shift blurred past. Lily sourced hojicha from a specialty tea shop 3 blocks away, paying for it herself and planning to expense it later, knowing the hotel's procurement process would take days. When she brought the tea to Mr. Takeda that afternoon, he took a sip, closed his eyes, and nodded once. She found herself smiling, really smiling, not the customer service version. You're welcome, she said in Japanese. He looked at her then, really looked, and spoke a full sentence. You have a kind face. That's rare in places like this. Lily's Japanese was too rough to formulate a proper response, so she just bowed slightly and stepped back. But something had shifted. Some invisible wall had thinned. Over the next week, Lily became Mr. Takeda's unofficial liaison. He requested her specifically for every meal. Their conversations were halting and broken. Her Japanese was improving through desperate late-night study sessions, but still inadequate for complex topics. Yet somehow they communicated. She learned he was in Chicago for business. Something vague about investments and partnerships. He asked about her life with gentle, probing questions that felt more like curiosity than intrusion. Where had she learned Japanese? College, she said, not mentioning she'd dropped out. Did she enjoy working at the hotel? It's a job, she said, not mentioning the medical debt or her father's declining health. What did she want from life? She didn't know how to answer that one, even in English. The other staff's attitude toward her shifted. Jessica stopped including her in gossip sessions. Marcus made pointed comments about teacher's pet. Robert started assigning her exclusively to Mr. Takeda, which meant worse tips from other tables, but also less interaction with demanding guests. Lily didn't care. For reasons she couldn't articulate, serving Mr. Takeda felt different. Less like service, more like companionship. That wasn't quite right either. He treated her like a person, like someone whose thoughts mattered. You're too smart to be a waitress, he said one afternoon in careful Japanese. Lily nearly dropped the teapot. I'm sorry? You understand complex grammar. Your vocabulary grows every day. You study at night, yes? Heat crept up her neck. I wanted to communicate better, for work. Mr. Takeda made a soft sound that might have been amusement. For work. 2 weeks into his stay, everything changed. It started when a group of American businessmen showed up at the restaurant for a meeting with Mr. Takeda. They were loud, confident, the kind of men who took up space without apologizing. They shook Mr. Takeda's hand with exaggerated slowness, speaking in that deliberately loud, over-enunciated English people use when they assume someone is stupid. Mr. Takeda, good to meet you. Lily, hovering nearby with water, watched Mr. Takeda bow politely. He gestured for them to sit, his movements careful and deferential. The lead businessman, Harrison something, according to his expensive watch and entitled posture, looked around for Lily. We need you to translate. Of course, Lily said quietly. What followed was 3 hours of the most uncomfortable business discussion Lily had ever witnessed. Harrison and his colleagues presented an investment opportunity, something about commercial real estate partnerships. Their pitch was aggressive, barely short of predatory. They spoke over each other, threw out numbers without context, and made increasingly obvious attempts to confuse Mr. Takeda. Lily translated everything faithfully, even the parts that made her stomach turn. Tell him the return rate is guaranteed, Harrison said, flashing too many teeth. Absolutely zero risk. Lily translated, then added in Japanese, there's no such thing as guaranteed returns in real estate. This sounds risky. Mr. Takeda's expression didn't change, but he responded, what do you think of these men? Lily hesitated. She was a waitress. Her job was to serve tea and translate, not offer opinions on multi-million-dollar business deals. I think they're lying to you, she said finally, in Japanese. I think they believe you don't understand how American business works and they're trying to take advantage. Harrison frowned. What's she saying? I'm explaining the terms, Lily said smoothly in English. Mr. Takeda asked her another question in Japanese. Why do you think that? Because they're not giving you time to think. Because they keep changing the numbers. Because they're treating you like you're stupid. Lily's hands tightened on her notepad. I've seen men like this before. They smile while they rob you. Something flickered in Mr. Takeda's eyes. He nodded slowly, then spoke to Harrison in halting, broken English. I consider. Need time. Think. Harrison's smile cracked slightly. Of course. But this opportunity won't last forever. Other investors are very interested. I understand, Mr. Takeda said. I think. Then answer. The businessmen left frustrated but still hopeful. After they were gone, Mr. Takeda sat in silence for a long moment. You didn't translate everything I said to them, he finally said in Japanese. Lily's heart dropped. I'm sorry. I overstepped. I shouldn't have. You protected me. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Why? Because they were trying to cheat you. But that's not your responsibility. You're paid to translate, not to guard me. Lily didn't have a good answer. You've been kind to me. I didn't want to watch someone take advantage of that. Mr. Takeda studied her for what felt like an eternity. Then he said something that would stick with Lily for weeks. Kindness is the rarest currency in the world. Never apologize for spending it. After that day, Mr. Takeda's requests became stranger. He asked Lily to attend more meetings, not just translate, but sit in on business calls and negotiations. He wanted her opinions on people, on proposals, on the subtle dynamics she noticed that apparently others missed. What did you think of the woman from the tech company? He'd ask after a pitch meeting. She was nervous, Lily would say, but honest. She believed in her product. And the lawyer yesterday? Bored. He was reading a script. He didn't care if you signed or not. Mr. Takeda absorbed all of this without comment, but Lily started to notice something odd. He seemed to understand English much better than he let on. Sometimes his reactions came a fraction of a second too fast. Sometimes he'd respond to a comment before she'd finished translating it. She didn't mention it. Whatever game he was playing, it wasn't her business. But late at night, lying in her cramped apartment while her father coughed in the next room, Lily wondered who Mr. Takeda really was. Japanese businessmen didn't usually stay in Chicago for 3 weeks without their stay making the news. They didn't conduct vague investment meetings with dozens of different companies. They didn't befriend waitresses. You're overthinking it, she told herself. He's just a client. Except he wasn't. Not anymore. 3 weeks into Mr. Takeda's stay, Lily's father collapsed at home. She got the call during her shift. Her hand shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. Pneumonia, the hospital, They were admitting him now. Could she come? I have to go, Lily told Robert, already untying her apron. Family emergency. You're scheduled until 8. My father is in the hospital. Robert's expression hardened. We have a full dining room, and you're the only one who can communicate with our VIP guest. Find coverage or don't come back. Lily stared at him. 2 years of perfect attendance, 2 years of extra shifts and doubled work, and this was what it bought her. I understand, she said quietly. Then she walked toward the exit. Lily. Mr. Takeda was standing by table 12. He must have heard everything. Go to your father. I will speak to the manager.
You don't have to go.
His voice carried an authority she'd never heard before. Not a request. A command. Lily ran. The hospital was chaos. Her father looked small and gray in the emergency room bed, oxygen mask fogged with his labored breathing. The doctor used words like serious and complications, and we'll need to keep him for observation. How long? Lily asked. At least a week. Possibly more. A week. The bills would be catastrophic. Even with the payment plan she'd negotiated for his previous hospitalization, this would bury them. Lily sat beside her father's bed and did math in her head. Even if Robert let her keep her job, even if she picked up every available shift, even if she stopped eating anything that wasn't rice and canned soup, it wasn't enough. The numbers didn't work. They never worked. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your job is secure. Take the time you need. Lily stared at the message. Then she started crying. Not delicate tears, ugly choking sobs that bent her double in the uncomfortable hospital chair. Her father stirred. Lily? I'm here, Dad. I'm right here. You should be at work. Work can wait. She held his hand, careful of the IV. You're more important. He squeezed her fingers weakly. You're a good girl. Your mother would be proud. Lily stayed at the hospital for 16 hours. She only left when the nurses insisted, when her father was stable and sleeping. She stumbled home at dawn, fell into bed fully clothed, and slept 4 hours before her alarm screamed her awake. When she returned to the hotel that afternoon, expecting to be fired, Robert met her with an expression of confused resentment. Mr. Takeda has requested that you take paid leave until your family situation stabilizes, he said, each word sounding like it physically hurt him. Hotel management has approved it. Lily's exhausted brain couldn't process this. Paid leave. 1 week, full salary. After that, we'll reassess based on your father's condition. Robert's smile was brittle. You must have made quite an impression. She found Mr. Takeda in his usual spot by the window. You didn't have to do that, she said in Japanese, too tired to remember English. Yes, I did. He gestured for her to sit. For the first time in 2 years, Lily sat down in the hotel restaurant as a guest rather than staff. It felt wrong, like wearing someone else's skin. I can't accept. Your father is ill. You need to be with him. This is not negotiable. Mr. Takeda's voice was gentle but immovable. Sometimes kindness must be forced upon stubborn people. Lily laughed, surprising herself. Is that a Japanese saying? No, just something I learned from experience. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, Chicago rushed past in its usual chaos of traffic and ambition. Why are you helping me? Lily asked finally. You barely know me. Mr. Takeda considered this. When he spoke, his Japanese was slower, more careful, like he was choosing each word with precision. I have spent many years surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, connections, opportunity. They smile and bow and say kind words, but their eyes are always calculating. He paused, removing his glasses to clean them. Without the thick lenses, his eyes looked younger somehow, sharper. You never asked me for anything, he continued. You helped me because I was struggling. You protected me from those businessmen because it was right, not because you expected reward. That is, he seemed to search for the word. Rare. Impossibly rare. Lily felt something crack open in her chest. When was the last time someone had seen her? Really seen her, not as a server or a caretaker or a struggling daughter, but as a person worth noticing? Thank you, she whispered. Mr. Takeda nodded once. Then he said something that would change everything. When your father recovers, I would like to offer you a different position, not as a server, as something more. I don't understand. You will. But first, take care of your family. That's what matters. The week blurred past in a haze of hospital visits and medical consultations. Her father improved slowly, the pneumonia retreating under aggressive antibiotic treatment. Lily slept in chairs, ate vending machine dinners, and tried not to think about the bills piling up like autumn leaves. On the sixth day, Mr. Takeda appeared at the hospital. Lily almost didn't recognize him at first. He wore the same dark suit, same thick glasses, same slightly hunched posture. But seeing him outside the hotel's controlled environment felt surreal. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I wanted to meet the man who raised such an unusual daughter." Mr. Takeda bowed to her father, who looked startled and confused. "Dad, this is Mr. Takeda, the guest I've been helping at the hotel." Her father, still weak but improving, managed a small bow from his bed. "Thank you for being kind to my daughter." What followed was the strangest conversation Lily had ever witnessed. Mr. Takeda spoke in halting English about his own daughter. Young, he said, growing up too fast. He asked her father about craftsmanship. Her father had been a carpenter before the arthritis. About the value of teaching children integrity versus success. Her father, despite his exhaustion, engaged fully. They talked about work ethics and parenting, about the difference between being respected and being feared. Lily sat in the corner and watched, unable to shake the feeling that she was witnessing something important, something that had nothing to do with hotels or Japanese translation. When Mr. Takeda finally left, her father turned to Lily with unusual intensity. "That man is testing you," he said. "What do you mean?" "I don't know for what, but I've met men like him before. Men with power and resources who spend their lives surrounded by liars. He's seeing if you're real." Her father coughed, then continued, "Whatever he offers you, think carefully. Men like that don't do anything without purpose." Lily wanted to argue, but she couldn't, because deep down she'd been thinking the same thing. When she returned to work the following Monday, the hotel felt different. Or maybe she felt different. The Grand Meridian's marble and crystal seemed more like theater now, beautiful surfaces hiding complicated machinery. Mr. Takeda was waiting at table 12. "Your father is recovering well?" he asked in Japanese. "Yes. Thank you again for... We need to talk." His tone had changed, more serious. "But not here. There's a meeting tomorrow. I want you to attend." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind that will help you understand who I really am." Lily's stomach flipped. "I'm not sure 9 a.m. conference room on the 15th floor. Wear something professional." He paused. "And Lily? Everything is about to change." That night, Lily lay awake until dawn, her father's warning echoing in her head. Men like that don't do anything without purpose. She should have walked away, should have declined the meeting, kept her simple waitress job, stayed safely invisible. But she'd spent 30 years being invisible, and somewhere in the past month, Mr. Takeda had made her feel seen. So when 9 a.m. came, Lily Harper put on her only professional outfit, a suit she'd bought for college interviews a decade ago, and took the elevator to the 15th floor. The conference room was already full. A dozen people in expensive business attire sat around a massive table. Lawyers, by the look of them, maybe executives, all American. And at the head of the table sat Mr. Takeda, looking exactly as he always did, elderly, unassuming, harmless. Lily took a seat near the back, trying to blend into the wallpaper. The meeting started with presentations. Something about a merger between a Japanese investment firm and an American tech consortium. The numbers were staggering, billions of dollars, thousands of jobs, complex international partnerships. Lily tried to follow, but the jargon overwhelmed her. Why was she here? What did Mr. Takeda expect her to do? Then Harrison, the predatory businessman from weeks ago, stood up to present. Lily's stomach dropped. He didn't acknowledge her, didn't even glance in her direction. His proposal was slick and confident, full of promises and projections. It was also, Lily realized slowly, almost identical to the deal he'd pitched to Mr. Takeda before. The same deal she'd warned was predatory. Harrison addressed Mr. Takeda directly, speaking slowly and loudly. "Mr. Takeda, this partnership will benefit both our companies very much." The other Americans nodded along. One lawyer smirked at her colleague, clearly amused by the pantomime. Mr. Takeda sat silently, his expression unchanged behind those thick glasses. Harrison continued, building momentum. We understand that navigating American business practices can be challenging for international partners. That's why we've structured this deal to be very simple, very straightforward. All you need to do is sign. I have a question. The voice cut through the room like a knife through silk. It came from Mr. Takeda, but it wasn't the halting, heavily accented English Lily had heard before. It was perfect, flawless American English without a trace of an accent. The room went dead silent. Harrison's smile froze on his face. Mr. Takeda stood slowly, reaching up to remove his glasses. Then, with deliberate care, he pulled something from his collar, some kind of prosthetic that had created the hunched posture. He straightened to his full height. The elderly Japanese businessman disappeared. In his place stood a man in his early 30s, American, sharp-eyed, radiating an authority that made every executive in the room suddenly look small. "My name," he said quietly, "is not Takeda. It's Ethan Vale." Someone gasped. Lily's brain couldn't process what she was seeing. Ethan Vale, the billionaire, the tech empire legend who'd disappeared from public life years ago. Forbes had speculated about his whereabouts for months. He'd been sitting in the Grand Meridian Hotel the entire time, eating breakfast, requesting hojicha, talking to a waitress about integrity, testing everyone. Ethan turned to Harrison, whose face had gone gray. "You've spent the last month trying to manipulate what you thought was a confused foreign investor. You've lied about returns, misrepresented risks, inflated projections, and you did it all while treating me like I was too stupid to understand basic English." Harrison opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "The deal is dead," Ethan said, "and I'll be recommending that my partners avoid any future business with your firm." He glanced at the lawyers. "I assume you all have copies of every meeting we've had? Every proposal?" The lawyers nodded, looking shell-shocked. Ethan's gaze swept the room and landed on Lily. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every conversation they'd had, every quiet moment, every piece of advice she'd given, it had all been part of an elaborate test, and she'd had no idea who she was really talking to. "Lily," Ethan said gently, "could you stay? Everyone else can go." The room emptied in under a minute. Nobody made eye contact with Harrison as he stumbled out. Then it was just the two of them, Ethan Vale, billionaire, single father, the man who'd built one of the largest private tech empires in America, and Lily Harper, a waitress drowning in medical debt. "I'm sorry," Ethan said. Lily still couldn't find words. "I know this is shocking. I know you feel betrayed. You lied to me." Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Every day, every conversation. It was all a lie. Not all of it." Ethan moved toward her slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. "My daughter is real. My wife did die. My frustration with corporate culture is real. The only thing I lied about was my identity." "Only?" Lily laughed, a bitter sound. "That's not a small thing. You're right. It's not." Ethan pulled out a chair, sitting down across from her, at eye level now, not towering. "I've spent 5 years building my company in isolation. 5 years surrounded by people who only see my money, who only want access. I stopped trusting anyone." He rubbed his face, suddenly looking exhausted. "Then my daughter started asking questions about the world, about whether people are basically good or basically selfish, and I realized I didn't have an answer anymore. I'd lost perspective." "So you created a test," Lily said flatly. "Yes, I researched people with cultural and language backgrounds across major cities. I created the persona of Mr. Takeda specifically to see how people would treat someone they perceived as powerless and foreign." Ethan met her eyes. "Most people failed immediately. Staff at 3 other hotels were openly hostile. Business contacts tried to scam me within hours. But I passed." The words tasted wrong in her mouth. "You didn't just pass, Lily. You were the only person in 4 months who treated me like a human being before knowing who I was. The only one who helped without expectation of reward." His voice softened. "You protected me from Harrison. You studied Japanese on your own time just to communicate better. You showed me kindness when you thought I was nobody." Lily stood abruptly, her chair scraped loud against the floor. "So what now?" You give me some money as a reward for being decent? Thank me for restoring your faith in humanity. No. Ethan stood too. I offer you a job. I already have a job. Not like this one. He pulled a folder from his briefcase, sliding it across the table. I'm building a foundation. Global initiative focused on cultural understanding, education, and supporting working-class families. I need someone to run it, someone who understands what it means to struggle, someone with integrity. Lily stared at the folder like it might explode. You don't know me. I've spent a month learning who you are, how you think, how you treat people when nobody's watching. Ethan's voice carried absolute certainty. You're exactly who I need. I'm a waitress. You're a woman who taught herself Japanese to help a stranger, who chose honesty over job security, who protects people even when it costs you. Ethan opened the folder, revealing contracts and salary numbers that made Lily's vision blur. The foundation would pay enough to cover your father's medical care completely, plus housing, benefits, and a budget to build your own team. Lily's hands trembled. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. I need time, she whispered. Take all the time you need. Ethan's expression gentled. But Lily, I didn't do this to manipulate you. I did it because I'm desperate to find someone real in a world full of performance. You're the first person in years who made me think that kind of person still exists. He left the folder on the table and walked out, leaving Lily alone with the weight of an impossible choice. Outside the conference room windows, Chicago sprawled in all its messy glory, millions of people struggling and striving and surviving. Lily picked up the folder with shaking hands and started reading. Everything was about to change. She just wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Lily didn't go home that night. She couldn't face her father yet, couldn't bear the weight of his hopeful questions when she didn't have answers. Instead, she walked. Miles of Chicago sidewalk passed under her feet, while the folder sat heavy in her bag like a brick of compressed future. The salary alone was obscene, more money than she'd make in 10 years at the Grand Meridian, enough to pay off every medical bill, every credit card, every loan that had been strangling her since her mother died. The benefits package included health care that would cover her father's treatments without the endless phone calls to insurance companies, without the compromises and payment plans and constant low-grade panic. It was everything she needed, and she didn't trust it. By the time she climbed the stairs to her apartment, dawn was breaking pink and cold over the lake. Her father was awake, sitting at their cramped kitchen table with his morning pills lined up like soldiers. You look terrible, he said. Thanks, Dad. Rough shift? Lily dropped into the chair across from him. Her feet screamed with relief. I need to tell you something. She laid it all out. The disguise. The test. Ethan Vale's true identity. The job offer that didn't make sense. Her father listened without interrupting, his weathered carpenter's hands wrapped around his coffee mug. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. What do you want to do? He asked finally. I don't know. That's the problem. Lily rubbed her eyes. Part of me wants to tell him to go to hell. He lied for a month. Made me think I was helping some lonely old man when really I was just performing in his social experiment. And the other part? The other part keeps thinking about what he said, about looking for someone real. She laughed without humor. How messed up is that? He manipulated me and I'm still considering it. Her father took a slow sip of coffee. Your mother used to say that rich people live in a different world than us. Not better or worse, just different. Different problems, different pressures. He set the mug down carefully. Maybe he really is that lonely. Maybe when you're that wealthy, everyone you meet is wearing a mask too. That doesn't make what he did okay. No, it doesn't. Her father's eyes, still sharp despite his illness, studied her face. But you're not angry about the lie. You're angry because you cared about Mr. Takeda, and now you have to reconcile that person with Ethan Vale. Lily wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. He was right. She genuinely liked the elderly businessman, had looked forward to their halting conversations, had felt seen by him in a way she hadn't felt seen in years. Learning it was all theater hurt worse than simple deception. What would Mom say? Lily asked quietly. Her father smiled, sad and fond. She'd tell you to trust your gut, and she'd remind you that perfect opportunities don't exist. Everything worthwhile comes with complications. Lily spent the next 3 days avoiding the Grand Meridian. She called in sick, ignored Robert's increasingly irritated texts, and sat in her apartment reading and rereading the foundation proposal until the pages were soft from handling. The scope was massive. Educational programs in 12 countries, cultural exchange initiatives, scholarships for underprivileged students, grants for working families facing medical crises, exactly like hers. It wasn't some vanity project. The research was thorough, the goals concrete, the budget staggering, and Ethan wanted her to run it. Her, a college dropout who served Eggs Benedict for minimum wage. On the fourth day, her phone rang from an unknown number. "This is Lily." "It's Ethan." His voice sounded different without the elderly rasp. Younger, tireder. "I'm not calling to pressure you. I just wanted to say that whatever you decide, I understand. And I'm sorry for how I handled this." Lily sat down on her worn couch. "Why me? Really, you could hire someone with an actual degree, someone with nonprofit experience." "I could." She heard him shift, maybe pacing. "But degrees don't teach empathy. Experience doesn't guarantee integrity. I've met hundreds of qualified candidates, perfect resumes, perfect interviews, and every single one of them looked at me like a resource to exploit." "Maybe you're just paranoid." Ethan laughed, short and sharp. "Maybe. Probably. 5 years ago, my wife died and I inherited full custody of our daughter. She was 3. I was drowning in grief and suddenly responsible for this tiny person who needed me to have answers I didn't have." Lily stayed quiet, sensing he needed to say this. "I threw myself into work because work made sense. Predictable. Controllable. I built the company bigger, made more money, hired more people. And every new success just isolated me further." His voice went rough. "My daughter is 8 now. Last month she asked me if anyone in the world was nice just to be nice, or if everyone always wants something." "Jesus." "Yeah." Ethan exhaled slowly. "That's when I knew I'd failed her. Not as a provider, but as a parent. I'd shown her a world where kindness doesn't exist without calculation. So I decided to find out if I was wrong. And you found me. I found you treating a rude, difficult old man with patience you didn't have to give. I found you studying a language on your own time for no benefit except better communication. I found you standing up to your manager for a stranger's dignity." Ethan paused. "You were kind when it cost you something. That's what I needed to see." Lily pressed her palm against her forehead. "You know that's an insane amount of pressure to put on one person, right?" "I know. I'm sorry." "Stop apologizing. It's starting to sound rehearsed." Another laugh, this one more genuine. "My daughter would like you. She's got no patience for bullshit either." "Language. She's heard worse from me." Lily heard a door close on his end, voices fading. "Look, I'm not going to beg. The offer stands until the end of the week. After that, I'll find someone else and leave you alone. But I hope you say yes, Lily, not because I need an employee, because I think you could actually change things." He hung up before she could respond. Lily sat there for 20 minutes, phone still pressed to her ear, trying to figure out what she felt. Anger, definitely. Confusion. Fear. But underneath all of it, something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. She called her father's hospital room. "Dad, I think I'm going to do it." "Then do it right," he said. "Make him work for it. Don't accept the first offer. You're worth more than gratitude." The next morning, Lily put on her interview suit and took the train to the address Ethan had included in the folder. Not the Grand Meridian. A sleek office building in the Loop, all glass and steel and money. The receptionist seemed to expect her. "Mr. Vale is on the 42nd floor, conference room B." The elevator ride felt like falling upward. Lily's reflection in the polished doors looked small and out of place. She almost pressed the button to go back down. But then the doors opened and Ethan was there, leaning against the reception desk in jeans and a rumpled button-down. No disguise, no performance, just a tired-looking man in his 30s with shadows under his eyes and coffee stains on his sleeve. "You came," he said. "I have conditions." Something like relief flickered across his face. "Okay. Not here, somewhere normal, a coffee shop or something. I can't think in places like this." Ethan grabbed his jacket. "I know a place." 20 minutes later, they were sitting in a cramped cafe in Pilsen, surrounded by students and freelancers, and the kind of people who didn't recognize billionaires in rumpled clothes. Ethan ordered black coffee. Lily got the cheapest thing on the menu out of habit, then felt stupid about it. Conditions, Ethan prompted. Lily pulled out the notepad where she'd spent the last 3 days writing and rewriting her demands. Her hands shook slightly. She ignored them. First, I want full transparency about the foundation's finances. Monthly reports, access to all accounts, complete budget authority. I'm not going to be a figurehead while someone else makes the real decisions. Done. Second, the foundation doesn't carry your name or your company's branding. If this is real, it can't be a PR tool. It has to exist independent of your ego. Ethan winced but nodded. Fair. Done. Third, I want to start small. 1 pilot program, maybe 2. Test the model before we scale. I've seen too many big initiatives fail because they tried to save everyone at once. Makes sense. What else? Lily took a breath. I want you to meet my father properly. Not as Mr. Takeda, not as Ethan Vale, the billionaire. As the person you actually are, whoever that is. Ethan set down his coffee. Why? Because my father is the best judge of character I know. And because if I'm going to trust you with my career, my reputation, and my ability to help people, I need to know you're not just performing a different role now. You think I'm still lying. I think everyone lies. Lily met his eyes. I just need to know what you're lying about before I commit. For a long moment, Ethan just looked at her. Then slowly, he smiled. Not the careful, calculated expression she'd seen on Mr. Takeda. Something more genuine, more human. When? He asked. Tomorrow. Dinner at my apartment. 6 o'clock. Bring your daughter. Ethan blinked. My daughter? You said she asked if anyone is nice just to be nice. I want her to meet someone who is. Lily closed her notepad. Besides, if we're going to work together, she should know who I am. Kids have good bullshit detectors. She really is going to like you, Ethan said quietly. They hammered out the rest of the details over bad coffee and worse pastries. Salary, benefits, timeline, office location. Lily negotiated harder than she'd ever negotiated anything, pushing back on every number until Ethan started looking at her with something like admiration. You're good at this, he said, after she demanded a performance bonus structure tied to measurable outcomes rather than his subjective assessment. I've been poor my whole life. You learn to fight for every dollar. That's exactly why I need you. When they finally shook hands across the sticky cafe table, Lily felt the first stirring of something that might have been excitement. Buried under the fear and doubt, yes. But there. She went grocery shopping on the way home, spending more than she should on ingredients for a real meal. If she was going to cook for a billionaire and his daughter, she wasn't serving ramen. Her father watched her prep with amusement. You're nervous. I'm not nervous. You've changed your shirt 3 times. The lighting in here is terrible. Lily checked the rice. What if his daughter hates me? What if she's some spoiled rich kid who thinks I'm trying to gold dig her dad? Then you'll handle it. You've handled worse. Her father moved slowly to the table, his breathing still labored but improving. Though I have to say, I never expected to meet a billionaire in our kitchen. He's just a person, Dad. A person who created an elaborate disguise to test humanity's decency. Sure. Very normal. The knock came at exactly 6 o'clock. Lily opened the door to find Ethan looking somehow more nervous than she felt, and beside him, a small girl with dark hair and 2 neat braids and her father's sharp eyes. Hi, the girl said immediately. I'm Sophie. Dad says you're the nice lady who helped him when he was pretending to be old. Did you really not know? Because I would have known. He's bad at staying in character when he's tired. Lily crouched down to Sophie's level. I had no idea. He's actually pretty good at lying. Sophie, Ethan said wearily. What? You are. Sophie walked past Lily into the apartment with the confidence of someone used to being welcome everywhere. She spotted Lily's father immediately. Are you Lily's dad? You look sick. Are you getting better? Sophie. Ethan looked mortified. But Lily's father laughed, a real laugh that turned into a cough. Yes, I'm getting better, and you must be the daughter with the important questions. I have lots of questions. Sophie climbed into the chair next to him without invitation. Like, why does everyone Dad meets want his money? And why do people act different when they know someone's rich? And do you think kindness is real, or is it just a thing people do to get stuff? Lily caught Ethan's eye. He looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Those are big questions. her father said seriously. But good ones. What do you think? I think kindness is real but rare, like really good pizza. Most pizza is okay, but the perfect slice is hard to find. Lily bit back a laugh. Ethan just covered his face with his hands. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Sophie talked nonstop, interrogating both Lily and her father about everything from their favorite books to their opinion on whether rich people should exist at all. Ethan tried to moderate but gave up after Sophie announced that his attempts at parenting were statistically ineffective. Where did she learn the word statistically? Lily asked. I made the mistake of teaching her to read, Ethan said. Now she's unstoppable. I'm gifted, Sophie said matter-of-factly, mouth full of rice. Dad doesn't like when I say that because it sounds braggy, but my therapist says I should own my intelligence. You have a therapist? Lily's father asked. Everyone should have a therapist, especially people who lose their moms when they're little. Sophie said it casually, like discussing the weather. Mine helps me figure out feelings. Did you know grief doesn't go away? It just gets quieter, like construction noise when you live in the city. The adults fell silent. Lily watched Ethan's expression carefully. He looked exhausted and sad and fiercely proud all at once. Your mom would be proud of you, he said quietly. I know, you tell me that a lot. Sophie turned to Lily. Do you think you can really help people with Dad's money? Because lots of people say they will, but then they just take the money and don't do anything good. Lily considered the question seriously. I don't know yet. I'm going to try. But your dad and I are starting small, testing things, making sure the help actually helps before we make it bigger. That's smart. Dad usually just throws money at problems and hopes they go away. Sophie, it's true. Remember when you donated to that school and they built a football stadium instead of fixing the library? Ethan looked at Lily. She's not wrong. That's why I want Lily, Sophie announced. She actually cares about the library part. After dinner, while Ethan helped with dishes, Sophie pulled Lily aside. Can I ask you something private? Sure. Sophie's voice dropped to a whisper. Are you going to try to marry my dad? Lily nearly choked. What? No, absolutely not. I'm going to work for him, that's all. Okay, good, because he's really bad at dating. He went out with this lady last year who only talked about yoga and manifestation, and it was super boring. Sophie studied Lily's face. But I like you. You talk to me like I'm a person, not like I'm cute or tragic. You are a person. Why would I talk to you any other way? Exactly, Sophie beamed. I'm going to tell Dad you passed the test. I thought your dad already tested me. That was his test. This was mine. Sophie skipped back to the kitchen. She's good, Dad. You can hire her. Ethan met Lily's eyes over his daughter's head, his expression somewhere between apologetic and amused. Apparently you've been approved by the real authority in my life. Later, after Sophie had talked Lily's father into showing her his old carpentry tools, and Ethan had helped clean up the last of dinner, they stood together in the cramped kitchen while Sophie and her father examined a handmade jewelry box in the living room. She's amazing, Lily said quietly. She's a lot. Ethan dried the last plate. Too smart for her own good. Doesn't let me get away with anything. You're lucky. I know. He set the dish down carefully. Lily, about tomorrow. I'm going to accept the job. Ethan turned to face her fully. Yeah? Yeah, but I need you to understand something. Lily kept her voice low so Sophie wouldn't hear. I'm not doing this because I trust you completely. I'm doing it because I trust the work. If you try to control how I run the foundation, if you turn it into some ego project, if you lie to me again about anything important, I'm out. No notice, no apology tour, just gone. Understood. And I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to spend your money in ways you think are stupid. I'm going to prioritize things you don't understand. You have to let me fail sometimes. I can do that. Can you, though? Lily crossed her arms. Because from where I'm standing, you're a control freak who trusts about 3 people on the planet. One of them is 8 years old. Ethan laughed, surprised. When did you get so good at reading me? I spent a month watching you pretend to be someone else. You learn things. They stood there for a moment in the warm kitchen light, the sounds of Sophie's chatter and her father's low responses drifting in from the next room. My father likes you, Lily said. He doesn't like most people. Sophie likes you too. That's rarer. We're really doing this? Ethan extended his hand. We're really doing this. Lily shook it, feeling the weight of everything that handshake represented. A new job, a new life, a partnership built on mutual wariness and tentative hope. I start Monday, she said. Monday. I'll have everything set up. Office, team, budget. No team yet. Just me for the first month. I need to figure out what I'm doing before I start managing people. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Right. Your call. Exactly. When they finally said goodbye, Sophie hugging both Lily and her father with unselfconscious affection, Ethan shaking her father's hand with genuine respect, Lily closed the door and leaned against it. Well, her father asked, I think I just agreed to the craziest thing I've ever done. Good. You were getting boring. Lily laughed and helped him back to his chair. They sat together in the quiet apartment, the city humming beyond the walls. Mom would tell me I'm insane, Lily said. Your mother believed in calculated risks. This is calculated. Her father squeezed her hand. You negotiated hard. You set boundaries. You brought that man and his daughter here to see how you really live. That's not insanity. That's intelligence. I'm terrified. Of course you are. Anything worth doing is terrifying. Monday came faster than Lily expected. She gave her notice at the Grand Meridian. Robert's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally grudging respect when she told him she was moving to nonprofit work. Jessica and Marcus barely said goodbye. The kitchen staff pooled money for flowers, which made Lily cry in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Ethan's office was downtown, occupying 3 floors of a building Lily had walked past hundreds of times without knowing what happened inside. Her new office was bigger than her apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake. The desk was real wood, the chair ergonomic. The computer so new it still had protective film on the screen. Lily stood in the doorway and felt like an imposter. You okay? Ethan appeared beside her, carrying 2 coffees. This is too much. It's standard. For you, maybe. I've been using a laptop from 2015. Ethan handed her a coffee. Get used to it. You're not a waitress anymore. The first week was overwhelming. Lily met lawyers, accountants, grant specialists, and program coordinators. Everyone called her Director Harper. She had business cards, a budget with 7 zeros, authority to make decisions that would affect thousands of lives. She went home every night with a headache and a notebook full of ideas. The second week, she started building the first pilot program, educational grants for working-class students with family medical crises. Kids like she'd been, forced to choose between college and survival. Ethan reviewed her proposal without comment, then signed off on the full budget. That's it? Lily asked. No pushback? You know what you're doing. I absolutely don't. Then you'll figure it out. That's why I hired you. By the third week, Lily had hired an assistant, established partnerships with 4 hospitals, and created an application process that prioritized need over achievement. Sophie started visiting the office after school, doing homework in Lily's space, and offering unsolicited advice on everything. You should have snacks, Sophie announced one afternoon. People work better when they're not hungry. It's science. Is it? Probably. I'll ask my therapist. Lily found herself looking forward to Sophie's visits. The kid was weird and blunt and occasionally exhausting, but she was also funny and kind and somehow made the intimidating office feel more human. One evening, after Sophie had gone home with her father, Lily stayed late reviewing applications. Stories of struggle that mirrored her own. Single parents working 2 jobs. Kids caring for sick relatives. Dreams deferred by circumstances beyond their control. She approved 17 grants in one night, enough money to change 17 lives. When she finally looked up, Ethan was leaning in her doorway. How long have you been there? Lily asked. Long enough to watch you cry over application essays. Lily wiped her eyes, embarrassed. They're just really good. Really sad. That's why this matters. Ethan came in and sat across from her. I spent years making money, building things, acquiring companies, and none of it felt like this. Like what? Like it mattered. They sat in the quiet office, the city lights glittering below. Somewhere out there, 17 families were about to get calls that would change everything. 17 kids would get to chase dreams that had seemed impossible yesterday. Thank you, Lily said quietly, for trusting me with this. Thank you for saying yes. Ethan stood to leave, then paused. And Lily, I know you don't completely trust me yet. That's smart. But I want you to know what you're doing here, the lives you're changing. This is the only thing I've done in 5 years that my wife would have been proud of. He left before Lily could respond. She sat alone in her too big office with her too important job and thought about the strange path that had led here. A month ago, she'd been serving Eggs Benedict to people who didn't see her face. Now she was approving life-changing grants and working alongside a billionaire who'd tested her character in the most elaborate way possible. It still felt unreal, but it also felt right. Lily pulled out her phone and texted her father. You were right. This was a calculated risk. And I think it's going to work. His response came immediately. Your mother always said you were braver than you knew. Prove her right. Lily smiled and got back to work. There were more applications to review, more lives to change, more ways to prove that kindness wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary. The foundation's first success came 6 weeks after Lily started. A 17-year-old girl from Detroit named Maria Torres had been accepted to Saritim, but was preparing to decline because her father needed dialysis 3 times a week. The scholarship covered tuition, but not family medical emergencies. Maria was going to community college instead, planning to work nights at a gas station to help pay bills. Lily's grant changed that. Full ride to MIT, plus a monthly stipend for the family's medical expenses, plus coverage for Maria's travel home during breaks. The phone call where Lily delivered the news lasted 45 minutes because Maria's mother kept crying and passing the phone to different family members who also cried. By the end, Lily was crying too, mascara running down her face while her assistant pretended not to notice. First one's always the hardest, Ethan said later, finding her in her office staring at Maria's application photo. Hardest? Emotionally, you'll process thousands of these. They won't all hit like this. I hope you're wrong. Lily set the photo down carefully. The day this stops feeling important is the day I quit. Ethan smiled that private smile she was learning to recognize, the one that meant she'd surprised him. Fair enough, but success brought visibility, and visibility brought complications Lily hadn't anticipated. By the 3rd month, word had spread about the mysterious new foundation funding need-based education grants. Reporters started calling, first local outlets, then national ones. Everyone wanted the story of the Billionaire's secret charity and the Waitress turned director running it. Just say no, Ethan advised during their weekly meeting. You don't owe them anything. It might help. If people know about the program, more students can apply. Or it becomes a circus. Trust me, I've seen what media attention does. It distorts everything. Lily chewed her lip, unconvinced. We're trying to help people. Doesn't that require people knowing we exist? There's a difference between strategic outreach and feeding the gossip machine. Ethan leaned back in his chair, looking tired. They won't want to write about the grants. They'll want to write about us, about why a billionaire hired a waitress with no degree, about my dead wife and your struggling father and what our relationship really is. We don't have a relationship. That won't stop them from inventing one. He was right, but Lily hated it. She agreed to one interview with a respected education journalist, carefully controlled, focusing only on the foundation's mission. The resulting article was thoughtful and well-researched. It quoted Lily extensively about their selection criteria and their focus on students facing family medical crises. It mentioned Ethan only briefly, noting his preference for privacy. Then the tabloids got hold of it. Within a week, Lily was Chicago's Cinderella story. Waitress wins billionaire's heart and his fortune. Photos appeared of her leaving the office, grainy and unflattering. Speculation ran wild about whether she and Ethan were dating, engaged, secretly married. One particularly creative outlet claimed Sophie was actually Lily's daughter from a previous relationship. This is insane, Lily said, scrolling through her phone in horror. They're making up entire backstories. Her assistant, a efficient woman named Patricia who'd worked in nonprofit administration for 20 years, barely looked up from her computer. Welcome to wealth-adjacent life. It doesn't get better. You just get numb to it. How is this legal? It's not defamation if they phrase it as questions. Could Lily Harper be secretly married? Sources suggest maybe. Patricia air-quoted with obvious disdain. They're parasites, but careful parasites. The attention bled into Lily's personal life. Photographers showed up outside her apartment. Her father got friend requests from fake Facebook accounts trying to dig up information. Former classmates she hadn't spoken to in a decade suddenly wanted to reconnect. Worst of all, the staff at the Grand Meridian gave interviews. Jessica sold a story about how Lily had been obsessed with wealthy guests and always angling for opportunities. Marcus claimed she'd deliberately sought out Mr. Takeda, somehow knowing his real identity. Robert described her as competent but overly ambitious, which was possibly the most damning thing anyone said because it carried the weight of authority. Lily read the articles alone in her office after everyone had gone home, feeling sick. Her phone rang. Ethan. "Don't read the comments," he said without preamble. "Too late." "Lily, they're calling me a gold digger, a social climber. One guy wrote an entire thread analyzing my manipulation tactics." Her voice cracked. "I helped you because it was the right thing to do. I took this job because I wanted to help people. And now everyone thinks I'm some scheming opportunist who slept her way into a fortune. Everyone who matters knows the truth." "That's easy for you to say. You're used to this. I'm not." Lily pressed her fingers against her temples. "My dad's neighbor asked him today if I was pregnant with your baby. Do you know how humiliating that is?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry. I should have prepared you better." "How? How do you prepare someone for being turned into a character in a story they didn't agree to star in?" "You don't." His voice was gentle. "You survive it and wait for them to get bored." But they didn't get bored. The story had legs because it had all the elements: wealth, mystery, romance, class tension. Lily became a symbol. To some, she represented the American dream: hard work rewarded, kindness recognized. To others, she was proof that the system was rigged, that connections mattered more than merit. Nobody asked what she actually thought. Sophie noticed, of course. She was too smart not to. "Dad says people are being mean about you on the internet," Sophie said one afternoon, sprawled on Lily's office floor with her homework. "Are you okay?" Lily looked up from her laptop. "I'm fine." That's what adults say when they're not fine but don't want kids to worry. "When did you get so wise?" "I've been in therapy for 5 years. I know all the tricks." Sophie rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. "Do you want to know what my therapist says about mean people?" "Sure." "She says hurt people. Like, when someone's mean, it's usually because they're sad or scared about their own life. So they make other people feel bad to feel better about themselves." Lily considered this. "Your therapist sounds smart." "She is. She also says I should stop psychoanalyzing my classmates, but I think that's unrealistic." Sophie sat up. "The people saying mean things don't know you. They're just jealous because you get to do something cool and they don't. It's more complicated than that." "Is it, though?" Sophie's sharp eyes studied her. "You're helping kids go to college. That's objectively good. So anyone who's mad about it is probably just jealous or dumb." Lily laughed despite herself. "You can't call people dumb." "Why not? Some people are dumb. It's just facts." "Sophie, fine. Some people are intellectually limited." The media storm would have been manageable if it had stayed in the gossip columns. But then a legitimate newspaper ran an investigative piece questioning Lily's qualifications. They interviewed education policy experts who argued that foundation leadership required specific expertise. They quoted nonprofit directors who suggested Ethan's hiring decision was nepotistic at best, reckless at worst. The article didn't call Lily incompetent directly. It just asked questions, raised concerns, suggested that perhaps good intentions weren't enough to manage a multi-million-dollar charitable initiative. Lily read it 3 times, each pass making her feel smaller, because parts of it were right. She didn't have a degree in nonprofit management. She'd never run an organization. Her experience was waiting tables and surviving, and while those things had value, were they really enough? "Don't do this to yourself," Patricia said, finding Lily staring blankly at her computer. "I've worked with a dozen foundation directors. Half of them had fancy degrees and no idea what they were doing. You're doing actual good work. That matters more than credentials." "Does it? What if I make a mistake? What if I approve the wrong grant or structure a program poorly and waste money that could have helped someone? Then you learn and do better next time. That's the job." Patricia crossed her arms. "You think those experts criticizing you never made mistakes? Please. I worked at a foundation once where the director, Harvard MBA, 15 years experience, approved a scholarship program that accidentally excluded the exact demographic it was supposed to help. took them 2 years to notice. That's not reassuring. It's realistic. Stop expecting yourself to be perfect. Even Ethan doesn't expect that, and he's the most controlling person I've ever met. Lily managed a weak smile. You know he can hear you, right? His office is right there. I know. I say it louder when he's listening. That evening, Lily stayed late reviewing applications, trying to lose herself in work. Each story was a reminder of why this mattered more than media criticism or professional skepticism. Kids who deserved chances. Families struggling under medical debt. Dreams deferred, but not dead. She was approving a grant for a girl whose mother had MS when Ethan knocked on her doorframe. Go home. You've been here for 12 hours. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been reading the same application for 20 minutes. Lily looked down. He was right. The words had stopped making sense 3 paragraphs ago. They think I'm a fraud, she said quietly. Ethan came in and sat across from her. Some people think I'm a fraud too. Goes with the territory. You've actually accomplished things. Built companies, made billions. I served breakfast. You survived poverty while caring for a sick parent and still managed to treat people with kindness. That's harder than building companies. That's not what the newspaper thinks. Since when do you care what newspapers think? Ethan's voice had an edge now. The Lily I hired told me to my face that I was a control freak. She negotiated like a shark and demanded I prove myself to her father. That woman didn't care about other people's opinions. That woman didn't have her entire life scrutinized by strangers. Yes, she did, every day. By every customer who looked through her like furniture. By managers who treated her like she was disposable. Ethan leaned forward. The only difference is now the strangers have a megaphone. But they're still just strangers, Lily. They don't know you. Lily wanted to believe him, but doubt had sunk its teeth in deep. The foundation board meeting was scheduled for the next week. Lily had been dreading it since the critical article came out. The board consisted of Ethan, 2 of his business partners, a retired nonprofit executive, and an education policy expert. They were supposed to be advisory, but Lily knew they had the power to recommend her replacement. She prepared obsessively. Detailed reports on every grant approved, metrics on application processing times, demographic breakdowns of recipients, preliminary success indicators from the first cohort of students. She rehearsed answers to potential questions until her assistant told her she was spiraling. They're not going to fire you, Patricia said. They might suggest Ethan replace me with someone qualified. You're qualified. You've processed 400 applications in 3 months, approved 63 grants, and maintained a 92% satisfaction rate from recipients. Those are better numbers than most established foundations. I got lucky. You got good. Patricia shoved a folder at her. Stop catastrophizing and review these partnership proposals. The hospital network wants to expand our reach. The board meeting was held in Ethan's main office, in a conference room that probably cost more than Lily's entire apartment building. She arrived 15 minutes early, nauseous with anxiety. The retired nonprofit executive, a woman named Dorothy Chen, who'd run one of the country's largest education foundations, was already there. Director Harper. Dorothy's handshake was firm. I've been reviewing your work. Lily's stomach dropped. And I'm impressed. Dorothy smiled. Genuinely, your application review process is more thorough than programs with 10 times your staff. The way you've structured need assessment shows real understanding of systemic barriers. Oh, thank you. Don't thank me yet. I have questions. Dorothy pulled out a tablet covered in notes. But they're the good kind of questions. The kind that help you scale effectively. The meeting itself was less terrifying than Lily expected. The board reviewed her reports, asked pointed but fair questions, and discussed expansion strategies. The education policy expert, a professor named Dr. Reeves, challenged some of her methodology, but in a way that felt constructive rather than hostile. Until the end, when one of Ethan's business partners, a man named Marcus Hoffman, cleared his throat. I want to address the elephant in the room, Marcus said. The media attention on Director Harper's background. The room went quiet. Lily felt her face heat. What about it? Ethan's voice was carefully neutral. It's creating a narrative problem. Questions about nepotism, about qualification. It could undermine the foundation's credibility long term. Marcus looked at Lily with something like sympathy. I'm not questioning your work, which has been excellent. I'm questioning whether the optics are sustainable. Optics, Lily repeated flatly. Public perception matters in philanthropy. Donor confidence, partnership opportunities, media coverage, all of it relies on trust. And right now, the story isn't about the Foundation's mission. It's about you. Dorothy cut in before Lily could respond. With respect, Marcus, the story is always about something other than the mission. Media loves personalities. They loved it when I was called too aggressive for a woman in leadership. They loved it when James, she nodded at the other business partner, got divorced, and they speculated his foundation was a tax dodge. This too shall pass. Will it? Or will it define how the foundation is perceived? I think, Dr. Reeves said carefully, that the foundation's work will define how it's perceived. Director Harper's numbers speak for themselves. 63 students who wouldn't have college opportunities now do. That's what matters. I agree the work matters. I'm asking if we're setting it up for long-term success or short-term validation of an unconventional hiring decision. Lily found her voice. Say what you mean. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? You're dancing around it. Say what you actually mean. Lily kept her voice level. You think Ethan hired me because he feels sorry for me, or because he's attracted to me, or because it makes for a good story. You think I'm unqualified and the foundation would be better served by someone with credentials. I didn't say that. You implied it. So let's be direct. Lily pulled up her presentation. These are the 63 students we've funded. Want to know what they have in common? Every single one was rejected by traditional scholarship programs because their need was too complicated. Medical emergencies, family obligations, non-linear academic histories. The kind of messy, real-world problems that look bad on paper. She clicked through slides, each one showing a student's story. Traditional foundation directors with traditional qualifications looked at these applications and saw risk. I looked at them and saw myself. That's my qualification, Mr. Hoffman. I know what it's like to be passed over because your life doesn't fit the narrative people want. The room was silent. Now, Lily continued, if you want to vote to replace me with someone who has an MBA and 10 years of nonprofit experience, you can do that. But find me someone with those credentials who will approve a grant for a kid whose dad has cancer and whose GPA dropped junior year because he was working night shifts. Find me someone who won't look at complicated circumstances and see liability. She sat down, heart hammering. Dorothy was smiling. Dr. Reeves looked thoughtful. Marcus appeared uncomfortable but not hostile. Ethan hadn't moved, his expression unreadable. Well, Dorothy said finally, I think that answers the question of whether Director Harper can handle pressure. The board voted unanimously to continue with the current structure. Marcus even apologized, sort of, saying he just wanted to ensure they were considering all angles. After everyone left, Lily stayed in the conference room, suddenly exhausted. Ethan found her there 20 minutes later. You didn't have to defend yourself that hard, he said. I would have handled it. I know, but I needed to hear myself say it, needed to know I believed it. Do you believe it? Lily considered. I believe the work matters. I believe those 63 kids deserve their grants. Whether I'm the perfect person to run this foundation, I still don't know. But I'm the person doing it right now, and I'm going to do it as well as I can. Ethan sat down beside her. That article got to you more than you let on. Yeah. Want to know a secret? The first major article written about my company called me a tech industry dilettante playing with daddy's money. Lily looked at him. Your dad was a high school teacher? Exactly. They made it up because the real story, kid from a middle-class family builds successful company through obsessive work, was boring, so they invented a narrative that fit better. Ethan shrugged. Took me 2 years to learn that you can't fight narratives. You just outlive them. That's not very satisfying advice. No, but it's true. They sat in the quiet conference room, the city spreading out below them in a grid of lights and lives. Somewhere in that grid were 63 students whose futures had shifted because Lily had been willing to take a chance on them. That mattered more than articles or optics or other people's opinions about her qualifications. It had to matter more. Otherwise, what was the point? Sophie wants you to come to her school play, Ethan said suddenly. Lily blinked at the non sequitur. What? She's playing a tree in the 3rd grade production of The Giving Tree. She has 3 lines and she's taking it very seriously. Ethan's mouth quirked. She specifically requested you be there, said you're the only one who understands the emotional complexity of playing a tree. The emotional complexity. Her words, not mine. Lily laughed, surprising herself. When is it? Friday at 7. I'll save you a seat. Ethan, it's just a school play, Lily. You don't have to read into it. But Lily was reading into it, because somewhere in the chaos of media scrutiny and board meetings and self-doubt, she'd become part of Ethan and Sophie's life in a way that went beyond professional. She wasn't just the foundation director. She was the person Sophie wanted at her school play. The person Ethan called when articles hurt. The person who understood what they'd both lost and what they were trying to build. It should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home to a place she hadn't known she'd been missing. I'll be there, she said. The school play was exactly as chaotic as expected. Sophie's tree costume involved a lot of brown felt and branches made of cardboard that kept drooping. Her 3 lines were delivered with the gravitas of Shakespeare, and when she took her bow, she looked directly at Lily and grinned. Afterward, in the school parking lot, Sophie ran up still wearing half her costume. Did you see me? I didn't drop any lines. You were perfect, Lily said. I was adequate. There's a difference. Sophie pulled off a cardboard branch. But thank you for coming. Dad gets weird at school stuff because all the other parents try to talk to him about investments. I do not get weird, Ethan protested. You literally hid in the bathroom last time. I had to take a call. For 20 minutes? Lily watched them bicker, feeling something warm and complicated settle in her chest. This wasn't what she'd signed up for when she accepted the foundation job. But maybe it was what she needed. Not just the work, but the people. The strange, prickly, brilliant little family that had somehow decided she belonged. Ice cream? Sophie asked hopefully. Ethan checked his watch. It's 8:30 on a school night. So that's a yes? That's a small ice cream. They ended up at a diner because the ice cream shop was closed, sitting in a cracked vinyl booth while Sophie ordered pancakes and Lily got coffee that tasted like it had been made sometime last week. This place is terrible, Ethan said, looking around the dingy interior. It's perfect, Sophie said through a mouthful of pancakes. And somehow, it was. The mediocre coffee and sticky menus and flickering fluorescent lights felt more real than any 5-star restaurant. Here, Ethan was just a tired dad trying to convince his daughter that vegetables were important. Sophie was just a weird, brilliant kid covered in syrup. Lily was just someone who'd shown up and been allowed to stay. On the drive home, Ethan insisted on dropping her off. Lily watched Chicago pass by the window. The city where she'd struggled for so long was starting to feel different, not easier exactly, but less hostile, like it had room for her now. Thank you, she said quietly. For the ride? For taking a chance on me, for letting me do this work, for, Lily gestured vaguely, for seeing me when I felt invisible. Ethan pulled up to her building. Lily, you were never invisible. You were just surrounded by people too selfish to look. She got out of the car and watched them drive away, Sophie waving enthusiastically from the back seat. Inside her apartment, her father was still awake, reading in his chair. How was the play? He asked. Good. Really good. He studied her face. You're smiling. I know. That's new. Lily sat down across from him. I think I'm happy, Dad. Is that allowed? Am I allowed to be happy when 6 weeks ago people were calling me a fraud? Happiness isn't something you earn permission for. It just is. Her father set down his book. You've spent your whole life waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe it's time to accept that sometimes good things happen and they don't come with hidden costs. What if they do, though? What if I'm getting too comfortable and everything falls apart? Then you survive it, like you've survived everything else. He smiled. But maybe try enjoying it first. Revolutionary concept, I know. Lily went to bed that night thinking about survival and happiness and the strange path that had led from serving tea in a hotel to directing a foundation to sitting in a diner with a billionaire and his kid. None of it made sense. All of it felt right. She still didn't know if she was qualified, still worried about making mistakes, still felt the weight of other people's skepticism. But for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lily Harper went to sleep without the constant background hum of fear. And that felt like progress. The foundation's 6-month anniversary fell on a Tuesday in October. Lily marked it by approving their 100th grant. A kid from rural Montana whose mother had stage 4 breast cancer and whose acceptance to Berkeley had seemed impossible until now. She stared at the approval confirmation on her screen, thinking about how 6 months ago she'd been refilling water glasses and worrying about tips. Now she was changing lives, 100 of them. The number felt both massive and insufficient.
You look contemplative, Patricia said, dropping a stack of partnership proposals on her desk. Should I be worried? Just thinking about scale. We've helped 100 students. There are thousands who need help. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither are sustainable charitable initiatives. Patricia tapped the proposals.
Speaking of which, 3 universities want to partner with us on identification and outreach. That could triple our applicant pool. Triple the pool means triple the rejections. I hate that part. Everyone hates that part. It's also unavoidable. Patricia's phone buzzed. Ethan's looking for you, by the way. Said something about a meeting you apparently forgot about. Lily checked her calendar and swore. She'd completely spaced on their quarterly planning session. She grabbed her laptop and headed to Ethan's office, trying to remember what she was supposed to have prepared. Ethan was on a call when she arrived, pacing by his windows. He gestured for her to sit, wrapping up a conversation that involved words like acquisition and market position that reminded Lily he had an entire tech empire to run beyond the foundation. "Sorry," she said when he hung up. "I lost track of time. You're working too much." "That's rich coming from you." Ethan sat down across from her, loosening his tie. He looked tired. They probably both looked tired. The foundation had grown faster than either of them anticipated, and the administrative burden was starting to show. "I've been thinking about structure," Ethan said. "You need a deputy director, someone to handle operations so you can focus on strategy and program development. We talked about this. I want to build slowly. 6 months ago, yes. But you're drowning, Lily. You're processing applications, managing partnerships, handling finances, doing outreach. That's 4 full-time jobs." "I'm managing." "You're surviving. There's a difference." Ethan pulled up something on his tablet. "I've identified 3 candidates with strong nonprofit backgrounds. All have experience in education-focused philanthropy. I'd like you to interview them." Lily felt her shoulders tense. "You identified them without asking me." "I'm asking now." "By presenting me with pre-selected candidates and framing it as my choice." Ethan set the tablet down. "What's really going on here?" "You're doing it again, the control thing, making decisions about my department without consulting me. I'm trying to help you." "By taking over." Lily stood, needing to move. "Do you see how that's different? Helping would be asking what I need. This is deciding what I need and implementing it. You're being stubborn. I'm being protective of something I built. There's a difference." They stared at each other across the desk, the tension thick enough to cut. This wasn't their first argument about boundaries and authority, but it was the sharpest so far. Ethan broke first, rubbing his face. "You're right. I'm sorry. I saw a problem and tried to solve it without asking if you wanted it solved." "Thank you. But I still think you need help, Lily. And I'm worried that your resistance is about proving something rather than what's actually best for the foundation." The words stung because they were partially true. Lily was trying to prove something, to the board, to the media, to herself, that she could do this, that she was enough. "Maybe I am," she admitted, "but that doesn't mean you get to override me." "Fair. So what do you want to do?" Lily sat back down, thinking. "Let me hire my own deputy. I'll post the position, review candidates, make the decision, but I get final say, and you don't interfere in the process." "Agreed." "And I want to expand the team in other ways, too. A grant coordinator, an outreach specialist, people who understand the mission and care about it." "Whatever you need." Ethan hesitated. "For what it's worth, I'm not trying to undermine you. I'm trying to protect what we've built." "I know. But you need to trust that I can protect it too." The conversation shifted to quarterly reports and program metrics, both of them carefully professional. But something had shifted between them. Not broken, exactly. Just exposed. The fundamental tension of their partnership, Ethan's instinct to control everything, and Lily's need to prove she didn't need controlling. Later that week, Lily posted the deputy director position. Applications flooded in, over 300 in the first 48 hours. The credentials were impressive. Master's degrees from elite universities, decades of experience. People who made Lily's lack of formal education feel even more glaring. She was reviewing applications late one evening when Sophie appeared in her doorway. "Dad's in a meeting. Can I hang out here?" "Of course," Lily gestured to the couch. "Homework?" "Finished it at school."
I'm reading about the French Revolution now. Did you know they guillotined like a lot of people? It's actually pretty dark. That's historically accurate. Sophie sprawled on the couch with her book, occasionally reading gruesome facts aloud. Lily half listened while flagging promising candidates, trying to see past the perfect resumes to something more essential. "Why are you making that face?" Sophie asked. "What face?"
"Your I'm frustrated but pretending I'm not face. You do it a lot." Lily laughed. "I'm trying to hire someone important and everyone looks the same on paper. It's hard to tell who actually cares about the work versus who just wants a prestigious job. So test them." "What?" "Like Dad tested you. Make them show you who they are when they don't know it matters." Lily stared at Sophie. "That's actually kind of brilliant." "I know, I'm gifted, remember?" The idea took root. Lily couldn't create an elaborate disguise like Ethan had, but she could structure the interview process to reveal character. She designed a scenario-based assessment. Candidates would review real grant applications from students who'd been rejected by other programs and explain their decision-making process. Most candidates played it safe. They cited policy concerns, risk management, the need for objective criteria. Perfectly reasonable answers that made Lily want to scream. Then she interviewed Simone Washington. Simone was 43, had run educational programs at 2 major nonprofits, and had a resume that could have gotten her much higher-paying jobs. She showed up to the interview in practical shoes and a blazer with a coffee stain on the sleeve. "Sorry," Simone said, gesturing at the stain. "Toddler grabbed my cup this morning. I've learned to just roll with it." Lily liked her immediately. The scenario assessment sealed it. Simone read through the rejected applications with visible emotion, lingering on a case about a girl whose father had been deported mid-semester. "This kid has a 3.2 GPA while working 25 hours a week and translating for her mom at medical appointments," Simone said. "Traditional metrics would call her moderately competitive. I call her resilient as hell. I'd approve this in a heartbeat." Even though her grades aren't stellar, grades measure one thing: how well you perform in controlled academic environments. They don't measure character or determination or the ability to handle chaos. Simone set the application down. "I'm not interested in funding perfect students. I'm interested in funding real ones." Lily hired her on the spot. Ethan reviewed her choice with obvious relief. "Simone's got an excellent reputation, good instincts." "I know. I checked her references thoroughly." "Without telling me you were hiring her?" Lily smiled sweetly. "I thought you agreed not to interfere in the process." "Fair enough." Simone started the following Monday and immediately made herself indispensable. She streamlined their application review system, built relationships with guidance counselors at under-resourced schools, and pushed back on Lily's perfectionism with the kind of blunt efficiency that reminded Lily of Patricia. "You can't read every single application yourself," Simone said during their second week working together. "That's not sustainable, and it's not your job anymore. Your job is strategy." "But what if I miss someone important?" "Then I catch them. That's why you hired me." Simone pulled up a workflow diagram. "You review flagged cases and final approvals. I handle initial screening and standard evaluations. We both review edge cases. Division of labor, Director Harper. Revolutionary concept." Lily wanted to argue but couldn't find a good reason. Simone was right. She'd built the foundation's values and approach. Now she needed to trust other people to execute them. Letting go was harder than she expected. She caught herself second-guessing Simone's screening decisions, reviewing applications that had already been properly evaluated, staying late to double-check work that didn't need checking. The control thing wasn't just Ethan's problem. It was hers too. "You're hovering," Simone said one afternoon, catching Lily reading over her shoulder. "Stop it." "I'm just micromanaging because you're scared. I get it. This is your baby. But helicopter parenting doesn't work on kids and it doesn't work on employees." Lily stepped back, chastened. "Sorry." "Don't apologize. Just trust me. Or fire me if you can't." "I'm not going to fire you." "Then act like it." The words echoed something Lily had said to Ethan weeks ago. The realization was uncomfortable. She'd accused him of not trusting her while simultaneously refusing to trust anyone else. Growth, apparently, meant recognizing your own hypocrisy. November brought the Foundation's first real crisis. A local news station ran an investigation into one of their grant recipients, a student named Derek Chen, who'd received funding despite a juvenile criminal record. The report was breathless and accusatory. Foundation money going to troubled youth, questions about proper vetting, implications that Lily's lack of experience led to reckless decisions. The station had gotten Derek's sealed juvenile record somehow. The crime was shoplifting medication for his diabetic mother when he was 15. He'd been caught, charged, served community service. The incident had happened 3 years ago. Derek was now a college freshman studying biochemistry with a 3.8 GPA, hoping to develop affordable insulin alternatives. None of that made it into the news story. Lily watched the report in her office, fury building with each sensationalized sentence. They'd turned Derek's worst moment into entertainment, his second chance into a scandal. "We need to respond," Patricia said, already drafting talking points. "How?" They twisted everything. Any response will just give them more ammunition. "So we say nothing and let them control the narrative?" Lily's phone rang. "Ethan." "I saw," he said. "Don't talk to them." "I have to say something." "No, you don't. This is a hit piece designed to generate outrage. Engaging validates it." Ethan's voice was hard. "I'm sending our legal team. They'll handle it." Derek doesn't need lawyers. He needs someone to defend him. Lily, he was 15, Ethan. He stole diabetes medication for his dying mother, and now he's being dragged through the media because we gave him a scholarship. How is that fair? It's not. But responding emotionally will make it worse. Lily hung up on him. Then she called Derek directly. He answered on the third ring, his voice tight. "Director Harper, how are you holding up?" "I've had better days." A bitter laugh. "My roommate saw the report. Asked if I was actually a criminal. Campus security's been weird around me. It's great." "Derek, I'm so sorry. This is my fault." "How is it your fault? You didn't leak my records. You didn't twist my story." He exhaled slowly. "You gave me a chance when everyone else saw my record and slammed the door. That's not nothing. I want to fix this. You can't, but I appreciate it." After they hung up, Lily sat in her office feeling helpless and furious. The Foundation was supposed to help people like Derek. Instead, it had painted a target on his back. Simone found her an hour later, still staring at her dark computer screen. "Ethan's legal team is threatening the station with a lawsuit if they don't issue a correction," Simone reported. "They revealed Derek's sealed juvenile records illegally. The station's in trouble." "That doesn't undo the damage." "No, but it might prevent them from doing it again to someone else." Simone sat down. "I looked into Derek's case. You want to know what I found?" "What?" His application was borderline. Good grades, strong essay, clear need. But the criminal record would have disqualified him from 90% of scholarship programs. Most screeners would have rejected him without a second thought. "Your point?" "My point is you saw past the record to the kid. That's exactly what this foundation is supposed to do. The news station is wrong. The people criticizing you are wrong. You made the right call." Lily wanted to believe her. But the doubt was creeping back in, whispering that maybe the critics were right. Maybe she was too inexperienced, too naive, too willing to take risks that more seasoned directors would avoid. The board called an emergency meeting. Lily walked in expecting the worst. Instead, she found Dorothy Chen already there, looking furious. "Before anyone says anything," Dorothy started, "I want it on record that this news story was journalistic malpractice. They illegally obtained sealed records of a minor, revealed identifying information without consent, and framed a legitimate scholarship decision as reckless. If anyone on this board thinks Director Harper did anything wrong, I'd like to hear why." Silence. Dr. Reeves spoke carefully. "The Foundation's reputation is being questioned. We need to address that. Our reputation is fine among people who matter. Education professionals, guidance counselors, university partners. They all know what we're doing here." Dorothy looked around the table. "Or are we more concerned with what scandal-hungry news stations think?" Marcus Hoffman cleared his throat. "I think we need to consider implementing stricter screening criteria, background checks, perhaps mandatory interviews. So we can discriminate more efficiently? Lily heard herself say. Screen out anyone who's ever made a mistake? Because that's what you're suggesting. I'm suggesting we protect the foundation from liability. Derek Chen wasn't a liability. He was a kid who did something desperate in an impossible situation and has spent 3 years proving he's more than his worst moment. If we create policies that would have rejected him, what's the point of this foundation? The room went quiet. Ethan, who'd been silent until now, spoke. Lily's right. The foundation exists specifically to fund students that traditional programs reject. If we start screening for conventional acceptability, we're just another scholarship program. He looked at Marcus. The news story is noise. Derek's success will be signal. We stay the course. The board voted to maintain their current criteria with no changes. After everyone left, Dorothy pulled Lily aside. You held your ground. Good. The moment you start making decisions based on fear of criticism is the moment you stop doing meaningful work. What if I'm wrong, though? What if Derek fails out or gets in trouble and everyone says I should have known better? Then he fails, and you learn from it. But you don't preemptively punish people for failures that haven't happened. Dorothy squeezed her shoulder. I've been doing this for 30 years. The biggest regret I have isn't the risks I took that didn't work out. It's the risks I didn't take because I was too afraid of looking foolish. The Derek Chen story faded from the news cycle within a week, replaced by some celebrity scandal. The legal threat had worked. The station issued a quiet correction buried on their website. Derek continued excelling in his classes, occasionally emailing Lily with updates about his research. But the experience left scars. Lily found herself second-guessing approvals, hesitating on cases that felt risky, imagining worst-case scenarios for every decision. Simone noticed. You're doing it again. Doing what? Letting fear drive your choices. This application, she tapped the file Lily had been staring at for 20 minutes, is textbook approval. Strong need, clear potential, solid academic trajectory despite obstacles. Why are you hesitating? His father's incarcerated. What if that becomes a news story? What if it does? What if the moon crashes into the earth? We can't make decisions based on hypothetical media scandals. Simone's voice gentled. Derek's story scared you. I get it, but you can't let one bad experience change how you do this work. Lily approved the application. Then she approved 3 more that would have made her nervous a month ago. Each one felt like reclaiming something the news story had tried to take. The Foundation's 1-year anniversary approached with startling speed. Lily had planned a small event, thanking partners, celebrating milestones, acknowledging the students whose lives had changed. Nothing fancy, just recognition. Ethan had other ideas. I've booked the Constellation Center, he announced during a planning meeting. Full venue. We'll invite major donors, education leaders, policymakers. Absolutely not. Ethan blinked. What? We're not throwing some lavish gala. That's not what this foundation is about. It's about visibility and building support for expansion. It's about helping students, not impressing rich people at a party. Lily, no. If you want to throw yourself a party, fine, but don't attach the foundation's name to it. They argued for 20 minutes, their voices rising until Patricia poked her head in to ask if everything was okay. Eventually they compromised, a modest reception at the office, inviting grant recipients and partner organizations, with optional attendance for major donors who wanted to learn about the work. Planning the event meant facing something Lily had been avoiding, inviting the students they'd helped. 100 kids whose lives she'd changed, but most of whom she'd never met. The idea of seeing them all in one room, hearing their stories, understanding the full weight of what the foundation had accomplished, it felt overwhelming. You have to go, her father said when she tried to talk herself out of attending her own event. These kids want to thank you. They don't owe me thanks. We gave them what they deserved. And they want to acknowledge that. Let them. The night of the reception, Lily arrived early and immediately wanted to leave. The office had been transformed with simple decorations, tables of food, a slideshow of grant recipients rotating on screens. It looked professional and warm and terrifying. Students started arriving. Maria Torres from Detroit, now thriving at MIT, brought her whole family. Derek Chen showed up with a presentation board about his insulin research. A girl named Ashley Martinez, who'd been caring for her grandmother with Alzheimer's, introduced Lily to her college advisor, explaining how the grant had let her accept her dream school instead of staying home. Each introduction,
Each story, each thank you, felt like being hit in the chest with something beautiful and painful at once. "You okay?" Simone asked, finding Lily hiding near the bathrooms. "This is a lot." "Yeah, it is," Simone smiled. "But good, right?" "I don't know. I feel like a fraud taking credit for their success. They did the hard part." "You gave them the chance to do the hard part. That's not nothing."
Sophie arrived with Ethan wearing a dress she clearly hated and immediately complaining about. But when she saw the slideshow of students, she went quiet. "You helped all these people?" she asked Lily. "The foundation helped them." "You are the foundation." Sophie studied the photos. "That's actually really cool, like genuinely impressive. High praise from you. I don't give fake compliments, it's inefficient." Ethan caught Lily's eye across the room and smiled. Not his careful business smile. Something real and proud, and maybe a little emotional. Lily smiled back, feeling the last of her resistance to the evening dissolve. She gave a short speech, thanking the students, acknowledging the partners, celebrating the work without claiming credit. She talked about Derek's resilience and Maria's determination, and all the ways these young people had proven that potential isn't always visible on paper. "This foundation exists because someone once told me I mattered," Lily said, her voice catching slightly. "Because someone saw value in me when I felt invisible. Every grant we approve is us saying the same thing to someone else. You matter. Your dreams matter. Your circumstances don't define your worth." The applause was thunderous. Students crowded around her afterward, wanting to share updates and future plans. Parents shook her hand with tears in their eyes. Guidance counselors thanked her for creating options their students desperately needed. By the time everyone left, Lily was exhausted and exhilarated and completely certain that whatever doubts she had about her qualifications, this work was exactly what she was supposed to be doing. Ethan helped her clean up after, collecting abandoned plates and cups while Lily took down decorations. "That was good," he said finally. "Really good." "Yeah, it was. I'm sorry I pushed for the bigger venue. You were right. This was better." Lily looked at him surprised. Ethan didn't apologize often. "Thank you. I mean it. You understood what this needed to be, and I didn't. I'm learning that I don't always have the right answer." "Character growth." "I'm impressed." Ethan laughed. "Don't get too excited. I'm still a control freak." "I know. So am I." Lily sat on the edge of a table. "We're a disaster waiting to happen, honestly." "Probably. But we're doing good work." "Yeah, we are." They sat in the quiet office, surrounded by the evidence of 100 changed lives. Outside, Chicago glittered in the November dark. Somewhere in that city were students who wouldn't have college without this foundation, families who wouldn't have hope, dreams that wouldn't have futures. Lily thought about the waitress she'd been a year ago, invisible, drowning, certain her life would never be more than survival. That woman couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have pictured herself here, having changed so many lives, having been changed herself. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the test, for the job, for trusting me even when I didn't trust myself." Ethan met her eyes. "Thank you for being exactly who you are. No performance, no pretending, just real." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Lily didn't want to name. Then Sophie burst back through the door, having apparently escaped from her father's car. "I forgot my backpack. Also, can Lily come over for dinner tomorrow? I want to show her my science project about economic inequality." "That's a very specific science project," Lily said. "I'm gifted, remember?" Ethan shook his head, but he was smiling. "Yes, Lily can come to dinner, if she wants to." "I want to," Lily heard herself say, because somewhere between the test and the job and the year of building something meaningful together, Ethan and Sophie had become more than her boss and his daughter. They'd become her people, her strange, complicated, brilliant people, and that felt like the most surprising success of all. Dinner at Ethan's place turned into a regular thing, though neither of them explicitly decided it should. Sophie would text Lily asking about homework help or opinions on books, and somehow those conversations would end with "Dad says you should come over for dinner." Lily would show up with wine or dessert, feeling strange about visiting her boss's home, but stranger about declining. Ethan's house wasn't what she expected. No mansion, no ostentatious display of wealth, Just a comfortable brownstone in Lincoln Park with mismatched furniture and Sophie's art projects covering the refrigerator. It felt lived in, real. I imagined you in some minimalist penthouse, Lily admitted one evening, helping with dishes while Sophie finished homework at the kitchen table. I had one of those after my wife died. Ethan rinsed a plate. Lasted 6 months before I realized I was raising Sophie in a museum. She needed a home, not a showcase. Smart. Desperate. There's a difference. Sophie looked up from her math homework. Can I ask you guys something? That depends on the something, Ethan said. Are you dating? Lily nearly dropped the glass she was drying. Ethan went very still. No, they said simultaneously. Okay, but why not? You're both single. You hang out all the time. You smile at each other weird. We do not smile weird, Lily said. You absolutely do. It's this whole thing where you both pretend you're not smiling, but you are. Ethan cleared his throat. Sophie, Lily works for me. That would be inappropriate. Why? Because there's a power dynamic. But Lily doesn't care about your money. She yelled at you last week about the budget, so the power thing doesn't really work. Sophie, I'm just saying, if you like each other, the job thing seems like a dumb reason not to date, that's all. Sophie returned to her homework like she hadn't just lobbed a grenade into the kitchen. Lily and Ethan carefully didn't look at each other for the rest of the evening. Walking to her car later, Lily's phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Sorry about that. She's been watching too many rom-coms. Lily typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, It's fine. Kids say weird stuff. His reply came immediately. For the record, we don't smile weird. Absolutely not, Lily sent back, smiling despite herself. The Foundation's 18-month mark brought unexpected news. A major education nonprofit wanted to partner with them, offering to triple their funding capacity in exchange for expanding their model nationwide. The opportunity was massive, life-changing, exactly what Lily had been working toward. So why did it feel like a trap? This is good, right? Simone asked, reviewing the partnership proposal. National reach, more students helped, better infrastructure. It's great on paper. But they want editorial control over our selection criteria. They want their branding on everything. They want quarterly reports to their board. Lily tossed the proposal aside. They want to turn us into a subsidiary. That's how partnerships work. You give up some autonomy for greater impact. Or we lose what makes us different and become just another bureaucratic scholarship program. Simone studied her. You're scared. I'm cautious. You're scared that if you expand, you'll lose control of the thing you built, that someone will come in and make it conventional and safe and boring. Simone's voice was gentle but firm. But staying small forever isn't protecting the mission, Lily. It's limiting it. The partnership debate consumed the next board meeting. Dorothy argued for expansion, citing the thousands of additional students they could help. Dr. Reeves raised concerns about mission drift. Marcus wanted detailed financial projections. Ethan stayed conspicuously neutral, clearly trying to let Lily make the call without pressure. What do you think? Dorothy asked Lily directly. You built this. Where do you want it to go? Lily looked around the conference table at people who'd become allies, mentors, sometimes adversaries. A year and a half ago, she'd been terrified of this room. Now, it felt like hers. I think we should expand, she said slowly, but on our terms. We partner with organizations that share our values, not ones that want to reshape us into their image. We grow carefully, testing each new region before scaling further. We maintain final approval authority over selection criteria. That's going to limit our options, Marcus pointed out. Good. I'd rather help fewer people the right way than more people the wrong way. They spent 3 months negotiating terms with potential partners before finding one that fit. A smaller nonprofit with similar values, willing to collaborate rather than consume. The expansion would be gradual, 5 new states over 2 years with built-in evaluation periods. Lily threw herself into the launch planning, working 16-hour days and subsisting on coffee and adrenaline. Simone started leaving sticky notes on her monitor. Go home. Eat something that isn't from a vending machine. Sleep exists. Try it. Patricia was less subtle. You're burning out. I've seen it before. Stop. I'm fine. You fell asleep at your desk yesterday. I had to wake you up for a meeting you'd forgotten about. Patricia crossed her arms. Take a day off or I'm telling Ethan. That's not how this works. I'm your boss. And I've been doing this job since before you were born. Take a day off. Lily took the day off and spent it sleeping 14 hours straight. When she woke up, disoriented and groggy, her father was sitting in her kitchen reading the paper. "You look terrible," he said. "Thanks, Dad." "Patricia called me, said you're working yourself to death." "Patricia's dramatic." "Patricia's right." He set down the paper. "You're doing it again. The thing where you prove you're worthy by destroying yourself." Lily sat down heavily. "There's so much to do. The expansion, the new partnerships, the existing programs, and it will all still be there tomorrow. And the day after. You can't sustain this pace. I have to. If I slow down, people will say I can't handle it, that Ethan was wrong to hire me." "Who cares what people say?" Her father's voice was sharp. "You've helped hundreds of students. You've built something meaningful from nothing. You don't have anything left to prove." "Then why does it feel like I do?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because you spent 30 years being told you weren't enough. That message doesn't disappear just because your circumstances changed. You have to actively choose to stop believing it." Lily felt something crack open in her chest. He was right. She'd been running on the assumption that she had to earn her place every single day. That one mistake, one bad decision, one moment of human fallibility would prove all the critics right. She was exhausted, not just physically, existentially. "I don't know how to stop," she admitted. "Start by admitting you need help, then actually accept it when it's offered." The next day, Lily called a team meeting and laid out everything on her plate. "I can't do all of this alone. I've been trying to, and it's not working. So I need everyone to take ownership of their areas without waiting for my approval on every detail." Simone raised an eyebrow. "Is this you delegating or you having a breakdown?" "Both. Definitely both." Finally, Simone pulled up a project management board. "Okay, here's what we're doing. I'm taking full ownership of the expansion rollout. Patricia handles all administrative coordination. You focus on strategic partnerships and the stuff only you can do. But, no buts, this is happening. You can either get on board or watch us do it anyway." Letting go was harder than Lily expected. She caught herself obsessively checking project updates, second-guessing decisions that had already been made, hovering over work that didn't need her input. But slowly, painfully, she learned to trust her team. And something surprising happened. The work got better. Simone's expansion plan was more thorough than anything Lily would have created. Patricia's administrative systems were more efficient. Freed from micromanaging every detail, Lily had space to think strategically about the foundation's future. She also had space to notice that she was happy, not the manic, prove-yourself every second kind of busy that felt like happiness. Actually, happy. Content. Building something that mattered with people she trusted. The realization came one ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Lily was reviewing partnership agreements when Sophie appeared in her doorway, backpack dragging on the floor. "Dad's stuck in a meeting. Can I wait here?" "Always." Sophie settled into her usual spot on the couch, pulling out homework that was definitely too advanced for a 9-year-old. "We're learning about social inequality in school." "That's heavy for 4th grade." "My teacher says it's never too early to understand how systems work." Sophie chewed her pencil. "I told the class about your foundation, about how you help people the system ignores." "What did they say?" "Most of them thought it was cool. This one kid, Brandon, said his mom says charity just makes poor people dependent, that people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps." Lily felt her jaw tighten. "What did you say?" "I asked him if he knew what bootstraps were. He didn't. So I explained that it's physically impossible to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's literally the point of the phrase. It describes an impossible task." Sophie grinned. "Then I said some people don't have boots at all, so maybe we should focus on getting everyone boots instead of judging their pulling technique." Lily laughed so hard she choked. "What did your teacher say?" "She gave me extra credit for critical analysis of common idioms." "You're terrifying. You know that, right?" "I prefer intellectually formidable." Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking harried. "Sorry I'm late. Conference call ran over." "It's fine. Sophie was educating me on bootstrap theory." "Oh no. Did she tell you about Brandon?" "She did. I'm very proud." Sophie beamed. See, Dad? Lily gets it. They ended up ordering pizza in Lily's office. The three of them sprawled around her desk while Sophie explained her social studies project with the intensity of a doctoral defense. Watching Ethan try to keep up with his daughter's rapid-fire thinking, seeing the pride and exhaustion and love in his expression, Lily felt something settle in her chest. This was her family now. Not by blood or obligation, but by choice. By showing up. By caring when it was inconvenient and staying when it was hard. Later, after Sophie had fallen asleep on the couch and Ethan was gathering their things to leave, he paused in the doorway. "She loves you, you know," he said quietly. "Sophie, she talks about you constantly, asks your opinion on everything. You've become important to her." Lily's throat tightened. "She's important to me too." "I know. That's why I need to tell you something." Ethan set down Sophie's backpack. "I'm not good at this, at being vulnerable or admitting when I need people, but you've become important to me too, not just as the foundation director, as a person. Ethan, I'm not saying this to make things awkward. I just need you to know that what we've built here, the foundation, the partnership, the friendship, it matters to me. You matter to me." Lily's heart was doing something complicated. "You matter to me too." "Good. That's good." Ethan looked like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. Instead, he carefully picked up his sleeping daughter and headed for the elevator. Lily stood in her office doorway watching them go, feeling the weight of everything unsaid. 2 weeks later, her father's health took a sharp turn. Another infection, more serious this time. The hospital, machines, that awful antiseptic smell that lived in Lily's nightmares. She took emergency leave, camping out in his room, watching his chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance. "This is dramatic," her father said when he could talk, his voice thin and raspy. "Even for me." "Stop joking. You scared me. I've been scaring you since you were 5 and climbed that tree I told you was too high. You also caught me when I fell. Always." He squeezed her hand weakly. "But I'm getting tired, Lily. These catches are getting harder." Don't talk like that. I'm 73. I've been sick for years. We need to talk about this eventually. Not now. Not yet." Her father was quiet for a long moment. "I'm proud of you. I don't say it enough. But everything you've built, everything you've become, your mother would be so proud. She'd probably tell me I'm working too hard." "Definitely. But she'd be proud anyway." Ethan showed up at the hospital that evening with coffee and a sandwich Lily hadn't asked for but desperately needed. "How is he?" Ethan asked. "Stable, for now." Lily took the coffee gratefully. "You didn't have to come." "I wanted to. Sophie's with her grandmother tonight. She wanted to come too, but I told her hospitals aren't great for kids." She would have lectured the doctors about their inefficient systems. "Absolutely." Ethan sat down beside her. "How are you holding up?" "I'm terrified. Is that what you want to hear? That the person running your foundation is falling apart because her father might die? I want to hear the truth, whatever it is." Lily felt tears she'd been holding back all day spill over. "I'm not ready. I thought I had more time. I thought—" Her voice broke. "He's the only family I have left." Ethan pulled her into a hug, and Lily let herself fall apart in the uncomfortable hospital chair while machines beeped and her father slept and everything felt impossibly fragile. Her father recovered slowly. Another week in the hospital, then home with a visiting nurse and strict instructions about rest and medication. Lily took another week off work, despite his protests. "You have a foundation to run," he said from his recliner. "I have a father to take care of. The foundation can wait. Your mother never could get you to listen to reason either, but she did go back to work eventually. The foundation had survived her absence. Simone had handled everything smoothly. The world hadn't ended because Lily Harper took time for her family. The lesson was both humbling and liberating. The expansion launched in March, 18 months after Lily had started as director. They held simultaneous events in 5 cities, with local partners and students and community leaders. Lily traveled to each location, meeting kids whose stories mirrored her own, families struggling with the same impossible choices she remembered too well. In Dallas, she met a girl named Carmen, whose mother had kidney disease. In Atlanta, a boy named Michael, who was caring for his grandfather with dementia. In Denver, twin sisters whose father had lost his job after a workplace injury. Each one had been rejected by traditional programs. Each one deserved a chance. This is what it's about, Lily told her team during a debrief call. These kids, these families, everything else is just logistics. By the foundation's second anniversary, they'd helped over 300 students across 8 states. The media had mostly moved on to other stories. Lily's personal life was no longer tabloid fodder. She'd become just another nonprofit director doing good work, which was exactly what she'd wanted all along. The anniversary event was bigger this year, held at a university auditorium with student speakers and partner testimonials. Maria Torres, now a sophomore at MIT, gave a speech about her research into affordable medical devices. Derek Chen presented his insulin project, which had caught the attention of several pharmaceutical companies. Ashley Martinez talked about pursuing social work to help families like hers. Lily sat in the audience next to Ethan and Sophie, listening to these young people describe futures that hadn't existed 2 years ago, and felt something she'd been afraid to name settle into certainty. This was enough. She was enough. Not because she was perfect or qualified or beyond criticism, but because she showed up and did the work and cared about getting it right. After the event, during the reception, Dorothy Chen pulled Lily aside.
"I'm retiring next month," Dorothy said, "officially stepping down from my foundation." "Dorothy, are you okay?" "I'm 76 and tired. It's time," Dorothy smiled. "But I wanted you to know that you're the reason I feel comfortable leaving, knowing there are people like you doing this work, people who understand that credentials matter less than character." "I'm still figuring it out." "Everyone is. That's the secret they don't tell you. We're all just figuring it out." Dorothy squeezed her hand. "But you're doing it right. Trust that." Walking to her car that night, Lily found Ethan waiting by his truck. "Sophie's at a sleepover," he said. "Want to grab a drink? Celebrate?" They ended up at the same dingy diner from Sophie's school play, sitting in the same cracked booth, drinking the same terrible coffee. 2 years, Ethan said. "Feels longer, right? Feels like a different lifetime. You were terrified when you started, angry at me for most of it. I was angry at myself. You were just convenient." Lily stirred her coffee. "Thank you, by the way, for testing me, for seeing something I couldn't see in myself. I didn't see anything that wasn't already there. Still, you gave me a chance when you could have hired someone safe and qualified." Ethan leaned back. "You want to know the truth? I didn't hire you despite your lack of credentials. I hired you because of it. Everyone with perfect resumes had learned to perform, to say the right things and hide their real thoughts. You never learned that skill. You were just yourself. I've learned it now, some of it anyway. Not enough to ruin you. You still tell me when I'm being controlling, still fight for students others would reject, still refuse to play politics." Ethan's voice went soft. "That's what I needed, what the foundation needed, someone real." "Is this going somewhere?" Lily asked, her heart doing something complicated again. "I don't know. Maybe." Ethan looked uncertain in a way she'd never seen him. "Sophie asked me again if we're dating. I told her we're not. She asked why not. I didn't have a good answer. The power dynamic doesn't exist anymore. You've proven you don't need me. The foundation would survive if I disappeared tomorrow. Hell, it might do better." "That's not true." "It's true enough." Ethan met her eyes. "I'm not your boss, Lily. I'm your partner. In this work, in this mission, and I'd like to be your partner in other ways too, if you want that." Lily's first instinct was to say no, to protect herself from complication, to keep things professional and safe and uncomplicated. But she'd spent 2 years learning that safety wasn't the same as happiness, that taking risks on students, on herself, on hope, was the only way to build something worth having. "I want that," she said, "but slowly. We do this right. No rushing, no performance. Just real." "Just real," Ethan agreed. "I can do that." They didn't kiss in the diner, didn't make some dramatic declaration, just sat drinking terrible coffee and talking about the foundation's future and Sophie's latest obsession with marine biology. It was ordinary and perfect and exactly what Lily needed. 3 months later, on a random Thursday evening, Lily's father met them for dinner at his request. He looked stronger than he had since the hospital, color back in his face, steadiness in his movements. "I have news," he announced once they'd ordered. "I'm selling the house." Lily's stomach dropped. "What?"
Why? Are you sick again? I'm fine. Better than fine. He smiled at her panic. The medical bills are paid off thanks to your foundation's health support program. I don't need that big house anymore. Going to get a smaller place, something easier to maintain. You love that house. Mom and I grew up there, and now I'm making a different choice. That money from the sale? I'm donating half to your foundation. The other half I'm splitting between a travel fund and Sophie's college account. Dad, let me finish. I've spent 5 years sick. 5 years watching you sacrifice everything to take care of me. I'm not wasting whatever time I have left worrying about property maintenance. He reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Your mother always said home isn't a building, it's the people you love. You taught me that's true. Lily was crying, not even trying to hide it. Ethan handed her a napkin. Sophie, who'd been surprisingly quiet, spoke up. That's actually really beautiful. Like, genuinely moving. Can I use it for my creative writing assignment? Everyone laughed, the tension breaking into something warm. The foundation's third year brought new challenges and new successes. They expanded to 12 states, helped 500 students, partnered with hospitals to create integrated support systems for families facing medical crises. Lily hired more staff, built better processes, learned to let other people carry pieces of the weight. She and Ethan dated quietly, telling only their inner circle. Sophie was insufferably smug about being right. Patricia pretended to be surprised. Simone said she'd known for months and couldn't believe they'd taken so long. It wasn't perfect. Ethan still struggled with control. Lily still pushed herself too hard. They argued about foundation strategy and personal boundaries and whose turn it was to remember Sophie's school events. But they showed up for each other. Honestly, imperfectly, real. Sophie turned 10 and announced she wanted to join the foundation board when she was old enough. You're 10, Ethan said. You can't join the board. Not now. When I'm 18, I want to help make decisions about who gets grants. Why? Lily asked, genuinely curious. Because I was wrong about people being basically selfish. You proved that kindness is real. I want to help other people see it too. Lily caught Ethan's eye across the dinner table. He looked proud and terrified and maybe a little teary. When you're 18, Lily said, we'll talk about it. Promise? Promise. 4 years after Lily had first translated for an elderly Japanese businessman in a hotel restaurant, she stood in her office looking at their impact report. 843 students funded, 12 states covered, partnerships with 60 schools and 20 hospitals. A model other foundations were copying. She'd done this. A former waitress with no degree and a mountain of self-doubt had built something that mattered. Her phone buzzed. Ethan, Sophie wants to know if you're coming to her science fair tonight. Also, I want to know because I miss you and we haven't had dinner together in 3 days. Lily smiled and texted back, yes to both. I'm leaving now. Packing up her desk, she paused at the window overlooking the city. Somewhere out there were hundreds of students whose lives had changed because someone saw their potential. Families who'd been given impossible choices and found a third option, dreams that hadn't died. Lily thought about the woman she'd been, invisible, struggling, certain her kindness was weakness in a world that rewarded cruelty. That woman had been wrong. Kindness wasn't weakness, it was revolution. It was the quiet, persistent choice to see people as they were and help them become what they could be. She'd learned that from a billionaire pretending to be powerless, from a brilliant little girl who refused to accept easy answers, from students who'd survived impossible circumstances with grace, from her father who taught her that worth wasn't something you earned but something you claimed. The Grand Meridian Hotel was still there, still gleaming, still serving breakfast to guests who looked through the servers like furniture. Lily drove past it sometimes, remembering. She'd never gone back inside, didn't need to. That part of her story was over. She had a new story now, one where she wasn't invisible or powerless or barely surviving, one where she built futures and changed lives and belonged exactly where she was. When Lily arrived at Sophie's science fair, Ethan was already there, looking slightly panicked, while Sophie explained quantum physics to a confused parent volunteer. "Save me," he mouthed. Lily laughed and joined them, slipping her hand into Ethan's while Sophie continued her enthusiastic lecture. This was her life now. Chaotic, imperfect, beautiful. Built on the ruins of old fears and the foundation of hard-won trust. She'd spent 30 years proving she was worthy. Turned out she'd had it backward. She was worthy because she existed, because she tried, because she showed up even when it was hard. The foundation hadn't saved her. She'd saved herself. The foundation was just how she made sure other people knew they could save themselves too. That night, after Sophie's project had won honorable mention and they'd celebrated with ice cream, Lily sat on Ethan's couch while Sophie showed her father pictures from the fair. "Thank you," Lily said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "For what?" "For creating an impossible test, for being stubborn enough to see past my resume, for giving me a chance to become who I was supposed to be." "You gave yourself that chance. I just got out of the way." "No." Lily shook her head. "You saw me when I was invisible. That matters. It changed everything." Sophie inserted herself between them. "Are you guys being mushy? Because I can leave if you're going to be mushy." "We're not being mushy," Ethan said. "You absolutely are." "It's fine. I'm used to it." Sophie settled against Lily's shoulder. "But for the record, I'm glad Dad did his weird test thing, even though it was ethically questionable." "Ethically questionable?" Ethan repeated. "I've been reading about research ethics. Deception-based social experiments are super problematic." "She's not wrong," Lily said. "You're both terrible." But Ethan was smiling. They sat together on the couch, the strange family they'd accidentally built, and Lily felt something she'd spent her whole life chasing finally settle into place. Not happiness, exactly. Something deeper. Belonging. Purpose. The certainty that she was exactly where she needed to be. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual chaos. Inside, 3 people who'd found each other through impossible circumstances sat in comfortable silence. Proof that sometimes kindness wasn't just rare, it was transformative. Lily Harper had started as a waitress who translated Japanese for a difficult guest. She'd become a director who translated struggle into opportunity. But more than that, she'd become someone who believed, truly, deeply believed, that seeing people's worth and helping them claim it was the most important work in the world. The foundation would continue growing, students would keep applying, lives would keep changing, and Lily would keep showing up, imperfect and determined, proving every single day that the most revolutionary thing you can do is refuse to let the world make you invisible. She'd learned that from a man who'd hidden his identity to test humanity's kindness, from a girl who demanded honesty in a world of performance, from her father, who taught her that survival was just the beginning. And now she was teaching it to hundreds of students who'd been told they weren't enough, who'd been passed over and looked through and counted out. She was telling them what Ethan had told her, what she'd finally learned to believe about herself. You matter. Your circumstances don't define you. Your dreams are worth fighting for. It was the simplest message, the hardest lesson, the most important truth. And Lily Harper, former waitress and current revolutionary, would spend the rest of her life making sure as many people as possible got to hear it.